Ambassador Chen Li stood in the grand chamber of the Galactic Council and felt her heart sink into her stomach like a stone dropped into deep water. The chamber stretched higher than any cathedral on Earth, its walls made of living crystal that pulsed with soft rainbow light. 847 species had sent representatives here, beings of every conceivable shape and size, and all of them were staring at humanity's small delegation with what Chun could only describe as pity arbiter Vulthur, a being that looked like animated diamond given voice and thought, raised one crystalline appendage toward the humans. The gesture would have been elegant if it hadn't felt so much like a judge pronouncing sentence. We have reviewed your species history, your culture, your biology. Vulthur's voice resonated through the chamber without sound, translated directly into the minds of every being present. We have studied your wars, your conflicts, your endless cycles of violence and reconciliation. Chun felt Dr. Sarah Okonkwo tense beside her. Sarah had spent 6 months preparing Earth's case, documenting humanity's achievements in art, science, philosophy, all the beautiful things humans had created, and Chun kept her voice level, professional, even though she already knew what was coming. She had seen it in the way the council members avoided looking directly at the human delegation for the past 3 days. Earth is denied membership in the Galactic Council, Vulthur announced. And despite expecting it, the words still hit Chun like a physical blow. Your species is too volatile, too aggressive, too prone to violence. You have not evolved beyond your predatory origins. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some species chittered in agreement. Others remained silent. A few made sounds that might have been dissent. But none spoke up. Furthermore, Vulthur continued, humanity will be placed under a probationary observation period of 500 standard years. During this time, you will remain within your home system. Any attempt to develop faster than light travel will be considered a hostile act. Trade with council species is forbidden. Cultural exchange is forbidden. You will be observed, and perhaps in 5 centuries, you may have evolved enough to reconsider 500 years. Chun heard someone in her delegation, probably young Marcus Rodriguez from the military liaison, make a sound like a strangled gasp. 500 years was 20 generations, longer than the United States had existed, longer than most nations on Earth had endured. You are confining us to our own solar system? Sarah's voice cut through the shocked silence from the human delegation. You are denying us the stars? We are protecting you. Another council member spoke, this one a floating mass of tentacles and bioluminescence. Young species often destroy themselves when given technology they are not ready for. This is for your own good. For your own good. The most condescending phrase in any language. Chen felt something cold settle in her chest, something hard and sharp like ice forming over a lake in winter. She looked at Vulthur, at the assembled council, at 847 species who had decided that humanity wasn't good enough to join them. I see, Chun said quietly. And her tone must have carried something unexpected because Vulthur's crystalline form seemed to sharpen, focusing attention on her more intently. You understand this is not a punishment, Vulthur said, almost gently. Many species require time to mature. The Council has existed for 200,000 years. We have seen countless civilizations rise and fall. We know what works and what doesn't. You're afraid of us, Chun said. And it wasn't a question. The chamber went absolutely silent. Even the ambient sounds of translation and atmospheric processors seemed to pause. Not afraid, Vulthur corrected. Concerned. Your species has been spacefaring for barely 2 centuries, and you have already weaponized 3 different forms of energy that could sterilize a planet. You have created artificial intelligence and immediately enslaved it. You wage war over resources you haven't even learned to synthesize. These are not the actions of a species ready for galactic community. Chun wanted to argue, wanted to point out that humans had also created the Louvre and the Taj Mahal and the poetry of Pablo Neruda, that they had built hospitals and schools and dedicated their lives to helping strangers. That for every weapon, humans had created 10 tools of peace, but she looked at the council and realized they had already made up their minds. Nothing she said would matter now. Very well, Chun said, and her voice was steady, calm, almost serene. Humanity accepts the council's decision. That got their attention. Vela's crystalline form actually pulsed with surprise. Several council members shifted in their seats or made their species equivalent of a startled movement. You accept? Velther asked. Just like that? What else would we do? Chun smiled, and it was the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. You've made your position clear. You believe we're not ready. You think we need 500 years to mature. We understand. She gathered her delegation with a gesture, all 12 humans standing together in this vast chamber of alien beings who had judged them and found them wanting. We'll return to Earth. Chun continued. We'll inform our people of the Council's decision. We'll remain in our system as instructed. We understand perfectly. You are not angry? Another council member asked, this one resembling a pillar of living smoke. Most species protest such decisions. They plead their case. They offer concessions. Chen's smile grew colder. She thought of her grandmother, who had survived 3 wars and raised 5 children in poverty and never once asked anyone for help she hadn't earned. Why would we be angry? Chun asked softly. You've shown us exactly who you are and what you think of us. That's valuable information. We're grateful for the clarity. She turned to leave, her delegation following, their footsteps echoing in the sudden quiet of the chamber. Ambassador Chun, Velther called out. We hope you understand this is for the best. Perhaps in 500 years, when your species has matured. Chun turned back one last time, and her eyes were hard as flint. Perhaps, she said. Or perhaps in 500 years, you'll understand why excluding humanity was the biggest mistake the Council ever made. She walked out without waiting for a response, her delegation following in perfect silence behind them. The council chamber erupted in confused chatter. 847 species, trying to understand why the humans weren't begging, weren't pleading, weren't even showing the expected despair. Velther watched the humans leave and felt something unfamiliar. A crystalline being doesn't experience doubt often. But watching Ambassador Chun's cold smile and colder eyes, Velther wondered if perhaps the council had miscalculated on the shuttle back to Earth. Marcus Rodriguez finally spoke. What do we do now? He asked. Lee looked out at the stars, at all the vast distances humanity would not be allowed to explore, at all the worlds they would not be permitted to visit. Now? She said quietly. Now we show them what happens when you tell humanity they can't do something. She pulled out her communicator and opened a channel to Earth. To the United Nations, to every government and agency waiting for news. The Council has spoken, she transmitted. They've excluded us. They've confined us. They think we're not good enough. She paused, choosing her next words carefully. So we smile, we accept their decision, and we do what humanity has always done. When someone says we can't, we prove them wrong. We don't need their permission. We don't need their help. We'll find our own way to the stars. The message went out across Earth, across Luna, across Mars and the Belt settlements. Humanity had been judged and rejected, and humanity smiled coldly and began to plan. The Veil came online on a Tuesday morning in March, exactly 6 months after humanity's rejection from the Galactic Council. The Sarah Okonkwo watched from the control center on Luna as the final nodes activated 3,000 satellites and sensor stations forming a perfect sphere around the solar system. each one broadcasting interference patterns that would make it impossible for anyone outside to see what was happening within veil status. She asked. 100% coverage, her assistant reported. Sol System is now a black box. Anything trying to scan us from outside will get nothing but static. Sarah nodded, feeling a grim satisfaction. The Council wanted to observe humanity for 500 years? Let them try observing through a wall of quantum noise on Earth. The United Nations had dissolved itself and reformed as the unified Terran government within a week of Chun's return. The old divisions between nations seemed pointless now that humanity had a common purpose, a common enemy, even if that enemy was simply the galaxy's indifference construction. Began immediately on projects that would have seemed insane just months before the Mercury Reclamation Initiative started. First, autonomous mining platforms descended on the small planet closest to the Sun and began systematically dismantling it. Every gram of iron, every ounce of silicon, every atom of rare earth elements was harvested and sent to the growing shipyards around Jupiter. We're not being subtle about this, Marcus Rodriguez observed, watching the reports from his office in the new Terran Defense Coordination Center. He had been promoted 3 times in 6 months. Turned out that when humanity unified under a single purpose, talent rose fast. Why should we be subtle? Sarah replied over the comlink. The Council can't see through the veil. They don't know if we're sulking or building or extinct. Let them wonder. And wonder they did, the Council sent observation probes every few months. Small automated craft designed to peek past the veil and report on humanity's progress. Every single probe disappeared before crossing the asteroid belt, not destroyed dramatically, just quietly neutralized and dismantled, their parts added to humanity's growing resource stockpile. Chin Lee, now Secretary General of the Unified Terran Government, stood before the Assembly and outlined the plan that would define humanity's next century and a half. We have been excluded from the galaxy, she said, her voice carrying to every human settlement from Earth to Titan. They have told us we are not worthy. They have told us to wait 500 years. They have told us we cannot have the stars. She paused, letting the anger simmer in the silence. So we will not wait. We will not beg. We will not ask permission. We will build our own path to the stars, and when we are ready, we will leave. We will find our own worlds. We will create our own civilization. And the galaxy that rejected us will never see us again. The Assembly erupted in approval. Humanity had always been good at channeling spite into Achievement. Project Exodus became the focus of every engineer, every scientist, every worker on every world and station in the solar system. The goal was audacious, perhaps impossible, but humanity had made a habit of achieving the impossible. Dr. Yuki Tanaka led the faster-than-light research team. She had studied the Council's public documentation on their phase-folding drives. The technology they had explicitly forbidden humanity from developing. Their drives work by folding space, she explained to Sarah during one of their weekly coordination meetings. They create a bubble and step outside normal space for a moment, then step back in somewhere else. And we can't build that because they've mathematically proven it's the only way FDL can work. Yuki grinned. According to their physics, any other approach violates fundamental laws of the universe. But you don't believe them, Sarah guessed. I think they've been using the same technology for 200,000 years, Yuki said. I think they've forgotten how to innovate. I think they've convinced themselves their way is the only way. And I think they're wrong. She pulled up her calculations, equations that made Sarah's head hurt just looking at them. What if instead of folding space, we thread through it? Yuki asked. What if quantum entanglement isn't just for communication, but for transportation? What if we don't need to step outside the universe? What if we can just find the shortcuts already woven into its fabric? It took 60 years to prove Yuki was right, 60 years of failed experiments, of setbacks, of theories that collapsed under their own mathematics. 60 years while the Council's observation probes kept coming and kept disappearing. 60 years while Mercury vanished entirely, consumed by human industry. 60 years while generation ships began taking shape in the shipyards. The first successful quantum thread jump happened. Sarah was 104 years old, kept alive by medical technology that had advanced by leaps and bounds. Turns out when you tell humanity they're on their own, they get very good at not dying. The test ship, a small craft named Defiance, jumped from Earth to Pluto in 0 seconds, not faster than light, but through a quantum thread that connected 2 points in space like a cosmic shortcut. It works. Yuki breathed, and she was crying. It actually works. We did it. We have FTL, and the Council can go to hell. But they didn't stop there. Humanity had learned caution along with innovation. The Ghost Drive came next. A modification to the quantum threading that left absolutely no detectable signature, no energy spike, no gravitational distortion, no radiation, nothing. A ship equipped with a Ghost Drive could jump anywhere, and no one would ever know. The Council will be looking for phase-fold signatures, Marcus explained during the military briefing. They'll be scanning for the energy patterns they know. But our drives don't work like theirs. To their sensors, our ships will be invisible. The Exodus fleet took shape over 90 years. 3,000 ships, ranging from massive generation vessels the size of cities to nimble exploration craft. Each ship was self-sufficient. Each carried a piece of the archive. The archive was Sarah's final contribution before she retired, a comprehensive database of every aspect of human civilization. Art, music, literature, science, history, philosophy. The genome of every species on Earth, seeds of every plant, samples of every ecosystem. If we're leaving, she said, we're taking humanity with us. All of it, the good and the bad, the beautiful and the ugly. We don't get to choose which parts of ourselves we save. By year 147 after the Council's rejection, the solar system looked nothing like it had before. Mercury was gone completely. Reduced to processing facilities and solar collectors, Venus had been partially terraformed. Its atmosphere mined for resources. Its surface dotted with automated factories. Earth remained. But 94% of humanity had moved to the fleet or to the outer system installations. Mars had been fully terraformed and was now a garden world, designated as a backup if the Exodus failed. Humanity would still have 2 worlds. The outer system was a hive of industry. Jupiter's moons were covered in shipyards. Saturn's rings had been partially mined. The Kuiper Belt was home to thousands of resource extraction operations. Chen Li was 367 years old when she gave the final order. She stood on the bridge of the flagship Indomitable and looked at the faces around her. Some were young, born into the Exodus project. Some were old like her, kept alive by determination and medical science. All were human. All were ready. Status of the fleet? She asked. All ships report ready. The operations officer replied. All Ghost Drives charged. All crews at stations. All systems nominal. Status of Sol System? Earth is prepared. Caretaker population of 6 million volunteers. Luna colony maintaining minimal operations. Mars is self-sufficient. All defensive satellites active. Chun looked out at the stars, at the galaxy that had rejected humanity 150 years ago. Then it's time, she said quietly. Drop the veil. The quantum noise that had hidden humanity for a century and a half shut down in an instant. The solar system became visible to the galaxy once more. Deploy the message buoy. Chun ordered. Single satellite activated, broadcasting on all Council frequencies. To the Galactic Council, Humanity thanks you for your decision 150 years ago. You taught us self-reliance. You taught us that we could only depend on ourselves. You showed us that we needed no one but each other. We have learned this lesson well. We are leaving your galaxy. Do not follow us. Do not search for us. We have found our own path to the stars. Live well in your ancient peace. We go to find our own destiny. Chun paused, then added one final line. You decided to exclude Earth. Humanity smiled coldly and left. Remember us, or don't. It makes no difference now. All ships, she commanded. Execute jump sequence. Destination. Beyond charted space. 3,000 ships activated their ghost drives simultaneously and vanished without a trace. Without a signature, without a whisper. The galaxy's sensors detected nothing, no energy spike. No gravitational wave, no radiation burst. One moment there were 3,000 ships. The next there was only empty space. Humanity had left the building, and no one could follow. The alarms went off in council monitoring stations across 3 sectors when the veil around Sol system suddenly dropped Arbiter Velthur, now considerably older and dimmer than during the original judgment. Received the notification with something approaching relief finally. After 150 years of silence, they could check on the humans. Send survey teams immediately, Velthur ordered. I want to know their current status. Full scans of the system. Inventory of population and technology level. The crystalline being had thought about the humans often over the decades. Wondered if they had destroyed themselves as so many volatile species did. Wondered if they had survived but stagnated. Wondered if that cold smile Ambassador Chun had given still meant anything. The survey teams arrived at Sol System 3 days later and found something impossible. The system is empty. The lead surveyor reported. Confusion evident in their translated thoughts. Not that empty. There's almost nothing here. Elaborate. Velthur demanded. The reports came in piece by piece. Each one more baffling than the last. Earth was intact. More than intact, it was thriving. The planet had been carefully transformed into something between a nature preserve and a garden. Forests covered continents. Oceans teemed with life. The atmosphere was pristine. But there were almost no humans. Population estimate, 6 million, the surveyor said. Down from 9 billion at last contact. They're dead? Someone asked. Plague? War? No, the surveyor replied slowly. The population appears healthy, stable, deliberately small. They're caretakers. They maintain the planet. They seem to be volunteers who chose to stay behind. Mars was similarly transformed, a Fonda Sind, fully terraformed the world with another small caretaker population. Venus showed signs of massive industrial activity, but had been abandoned. Luna Colony was barely operational, and Mercury was simply gone. Gone? Velthur repeated. A planet cannot be gone. Yet it is, the surveyor confirmed. There are processing facilities and solar collectors in its former orbit. The entire planet has been dismantled. Impossible, another council member protested. The energy requirements alone, no species at their technology level could. And yet they did. The surveyor interrupted. The evidence is undeniable. The real shock came when the survey team found the message. Boy Velthur listened to Ambassador Chun's final message 3 times. Each time feeling something that might have been alarm if crystalline beings experienced such emotions. They developed FTL. Velthur said flatly. We explicitly forbade this. They didn't ask permission. Another council member noted unnecessarily. Where did they go? The question came from a junior member, one of the younger species unknown. The survey team reported. We can find no FTL signatures. No jump traces. No gravitational distortions. Nothing. It's as if 3,000 ships simply ceased to exist. 3,000 ships? Velther's form brightened with surprise. Conservative estimate based on industrial capacity and resource depletion. The surveyor confirmed. They built an entire Exodus fleet. They took 94% of their population. They dismantled their solar system for resources. And they vanished. The council chamber erupted in debate when the full report was presented. This is unprecedented. One member shouted, they violated the probationary terms. Another accused, they were confined to their system and they developed FTL anyway. How did they develop FTL without our help? A more technical-minded member asked. Our phase-fold technology took us 10,000 years to perfect. Velther studied the data. The humans hadn't left much behind. But what they had left was telling. Manufacturing specifications for technologies that shouldn't exist. Energy readings that didn't match any known drive system. Mathematical proofs for theories the Council had dismissed millennia ago as impossible. They didn't use our technology. Velther said slowly. They invented their own. Something we've never seen before. Something our sensors can't detect. The implications hung in the air like a toxic cloud. So there's a species out there. A council member said carefully. A species we rejected and confined. A species we told was too violent, too dangerous. And they now have technology superior to ours in at least one field. And we have no idea where they are. The silence that followed was profound. Should we search for them? Someone finally asked, with what? Velther replied bitterly. They can hide from our sensors. They can move through space in ways we can't track. They could be anywhere in the galaxy, and we would never know. Then what do we do? Velther looked at the message buoy data again, at Chun's cold, calm words. At the complete confidence that humanity needed nothing from the Council. We wait, Velther said. We watch. We hope we were right to exclude them. And we pray. We never find out what happens when a species we call to dangerous decides to prove us right in the decades that followed. The Council's decision regarding humanity became a source of intense debate. Some species argued it had been the correct call. Humanity had proven their volatility by completely abandoning the galactic community. Others pointed out that humanity had also proven their capability. They had achieved in 150 years what some council species hadn't managed in millennia. A few younger species began to question the council's judgment in general. If they had been so wrong about humanity's potential, what else had they been wrong about? Trade routes near former human space became eerily quiet, not because there was any actual danger, but because no one wanted to be the first to encounter whatever the humans had become. Conspiracy theories flourished. Some said the humans had destroyed themselves, and the empty system was a cover-up. Others claimed humanity had ascended to a higher plane of existence. Still others whispered that the humans were watching from the darkness, waiting for something. The truth was simultaneously simpler and more terrifying. Humanity had done exactly what they said they would. Though they had left, and they had not looked back. Velther commissioned a study. 50 years after humanity's departure. An analysis of what the Council could have done differently. The results were uncomfortable if we had accepted them. The study concluded they would have become a valuable member species. Their innovative thinking and problem-solving abilities would have benefited the entire Council. If we had helped them instead of confined them, it continued, they would likely have remained aligned with Council interests and philosophies. By excluding them, the study finished. We created an independent power with unknown capabilities and unknown intentions. We made an enemy where we could have made an ally. Velther filed the study away in the deep archives. Some truths were too painful to share widely on the Council's 200th anniversary of humanity's judgment. A junior member asked Velther directly, "Do you regret the decision?" Velther considered the question. 200 years of wondering where the humans were, what they were doing, whether they would ever return. I regret that we will probably never know if we were right or wrong, Velther answered. The humans made sure of that when they disappeared completely. But do you think we were right? Velther looked at the image of Ambassador Chun that had been preserved from the Judgment Day, at that cold smile and those calculating eyes. I think, Velther said slowly, that we taught humanity a lesson we did not intend. We taught them that the galaxy could not be trusted, that they should rely only on themselves, that isolation was safer than community, and I think that lesson will echo through history in ways we cannot yet imagine. We showed humanity our worst face and expected them to appreciate it as wisdom. The study says we could have made them allies. Yes, Velther agreed. But instead we made them strangers. We don't even know if they still call themselves human. We don't know what they've built in the darkness beyond our borders. We don't know if they remember us with anger or indifference, which would be worse. Velther's crystalline form pulsed with what might have been sad amusement. I honestly don't know, the ancient arbiter admitted. But I suspect we will find out eventually. Species like humanity don't just vanish forever. They return. The only question is when and in what form, far beyond charted space. In a region the Council had never explored, humanity was asking themselves similar questions. Should we tell them where we are? A young human asked Chen Li during a celebration of the 200th anniversary of their departure. Chen, now over 500 years old, and looking like she might live another 500, smiled, not the cold smile she had given the Council, but something warmer, fiercer. Why? She asked simply. What could they possibly offer us that we haven't already built ourselves? The young human had no answer to that. Humanity had moved on. The galaxy that rejected them was just a memory now. A cautionary tale told to children about the dangers of depending on others, and in the darkness between the stars, humanity built wonders the Council would never see. The first Vulcan scout ship appeared at the edge of Council space on a day that started like any other and ended with the galaxy's longest period of peace coming to an abrupt and violent conclusion. The ship was organic, a thing of chitin and acid and hunger. It ignored all hails, all warnings, all attempts at communication. It simply began consuming everything in its path when Council defense forces engaged it. They discovered something terrifying. The Vulcan adapted. Every weapon used against them was analyzed, countered, and rendered useless within hours. Energy weapons were absorbed. Kinetic rounds were deflected. Even nuclear weapons only seemed to feed them. What are they? Velther demanded, watching the reports flow in as the single scout ship devastated an entire sector before it was finally destroyed through sheer overwhelming force. Extragalactic devourers, the science division reported. They consume matter and energy. They reproduce exponentially. They have no civilization, no culture, no communication, only hunger. One ship did this much damage? That was a scout, the military commander said grimly. Our long-range sensors have detected the main swarm. There are millions of them, maybe billions, and they're all headed toward Council space. The galaxy had 200,000 years of peace. 200,000 years of technological stagnation disguised as stability. 200,000 years of using the same weapons, the same tactics, the same thinking. The Vulcan cared nothing for any of it. They came in waves, consuming planets, stations, entire star systems. They turned living worlds into barren rocks in days. They reproduced using the very energy the Council forces used to fight them. Casualties mounted into the billions. Entire species were evacuated from their homeworlds. Ancient civilizations that had existed for eons watched their legacy consumed by chittering, mindless hunger. Velther stood in an emergency council session and faced a truth that was 250 years in the making. We are losing, the arbiter said simply. Our technology has not significantly advanced in millennia. We have the same weapons our ancestors used 50,000 years ago. We have become complacent in our peace. What do we do? Someone asked desperately. Find allies, another suggested. Are there any species we haven't contacted yet? Any unknown civilizations? Valther felt something that might have been bitter irony if crystalline beings experienced such things. There is one species, Valther said slowly. One civilization we rejected. One group we told was too violent, too dangerous for our peaceful galaxy. The council chamber went silent as realization dawned. The humans, someone whispered. We don't know where they are, another protested. We don't even know if they still exist. They exist, Valther said with certainty. A species that could build what they built doesn't simply die out. The council authorized the search, every available sensor, every scout ship, every resource devoted to finding the humans who had vanished 250 years ago. They found nothing, no ghost drive signatures, because they didn't know what to look for. No settlements, because humanity had gone far beyond charted space. No communications, because humans had stopped broadcasting to the galaxy. The search continued for 3 years, while the Velkarn consumed sector after sector. 23% of Council civilization was gone. Entire regions of the galaxy were now dead zones, far from the Council's desperate search. In the Terran Accord's capital system, humanity watched with interest and no small amount of grim satisfaction. The Velkarn have reached the outer sectors, Admiral James Okoro reported to the Accord Assembly. Casualties are in the hundreds of billions. The Council's defenses are failing. Do we know why the Velkarn are attacking? Someone asked. They're not attacking, a xenobiologist explained. They're feeding. It's nothing personal. They consume everything biological and energetic. They probably don't even recognize the Council species as intelligent. How long until they reach former human space? Chun-Li asked. She was 437 years old now, having lived long enough to see her great-great-great-grandchildren. At current rate of expansion, 85 years, the Admiral reported. Chun nodded. Slowly humanity had encountered the Velkarn 80 years ago, when the Accord's exploration fleet had pushed into a region the Council had never surveyed. That first contact had been violent through exploration. Ships destroyed before they understood what they were facing. But humanity had learned quickly, adapted faster, and developed countermeasures. The Terran Accord was not the Council. They didn't have 200,000 years of institutional inertia. They had barely 3 centuries of existence. They were still learning, still innovating, still fighting to survive. Status of Velkarn countermeasures? Chun asked. Highly effective, the Admiral smiled. Our adaptive shield technology prevents them from analyzing our defenses. Our quantum disruptors bypass their absorption capabilities. Our biological warfare division has developed 3 separate pathogens that can sterilize Velkarn biomass. And we've been fighting them for 80 years without the Council noticing. Another assembly member noted. We've been fighting them in the regions beyond their sensors. Chan corrected. Shadow war. Quiet battles. Number survivors on either side to report back. The Council is searching for us, someone reported. They've sent scouts to dozens of systems. They're getting desperate. The assembly fell silent, considering the implications. They want our help, Chan said flatly. They rejected us when they thought we were weak, confined us when they thought we were dangerous. Now they want us to save them. What do we do? Chun looked around the assembly, at faces of every color, from every background. United by the common experience of being told they weren't good enough, we debate, she said. We discuss. We make a decision together. That's what the Council never understood about humanity. We fight, yes, but we also choose. We disagree, but we also unite. We remember slights, but we also value principles. The debate raged for weeks. Some wanted to ignore the council entirely, to let them face the consequences of their arrogance. Others argued that genocide was genocide regardless of who the victims were. Still others suggested limited aid with heavy conditions. If we helped them, they'll try to take control again, one faction argued. They'll claim authority over us. They'll try to guide us. If we don't help, billions die, another faction countered. Innocent people who had nothing to do with the decision to exclude us. Chun listened to all sides. She had learned patience over 4 centuries. She understood that important decisions couldn't be rushed. Finally, after 6 weeks of debate, she called for a vote. The question before this assembly, she said, is not whether the council deserves our help. That's not for us to judge. The question is whether we can live with ourselves if we do nothing. The vote was close, but decisive. Humanity would intervene, but on their terms. In their way, when they chose. We don't announce ourselves, Chun ordered. We don't ask permission. We don't coordinate with council forces. We fight the Velkarn because they're a threat to all life, not because the council asked nicely. Ghost operations? The admiral asked completely, Chun confirmed. We hit the Velkarn where they're strongest. We disrupt their swarm patterns. We sterilize entire sectors if we have to. But we remain invisible. The council doesn't get to know we're helping until we decide to tell them. The Terran Accord mobilized not the entire military, just enough to make a difference. 200 Ghost Drive-equipped warships with crews trained in fighting the Velkarn. They deployed to the most contested sectors and began their work in silence when a Velkarn swarm would descend on a council world, expecting easy prey. They would suddenly find themselves dying by the millions, killed by weapons that appeared from nowhere, struck by ships that couldn't be detected, infected by pathogens that turned their own biology against them. The council forces would arrive to find the Velkarn dead or retreating. And no explanation for why. It's a miracle. Some council members proclaimed, it's statistically impossible. Others argued, something is killing the Velkarn. Something they can adapt to. Velthur studied the reports and recognized the pattern: precision strikes, appearing from nowhere, leaving no trace. It's the humans, the ancient arbiter said with certainty. It has to be. No one else has this capability, but we can't detect them. Exactly, Velthur replied. That's the point. They're helping us, but they're not revealing themselves. They want us to know they're there, but they won't give us the satisfaction of seeing them. Why would they help us after what we did? Velthur's crystalline form pulsed with something like admiration, because despite everything we said about them being too violent, too dangerous, too immature, they're better than we are, the arbiter said quietly. They're choosing to save lives, even when they have every reason to let us die. They're proving we were wrong about them in the most humiliating way possible. By helping us? By helping us without needing recognition, without demanding apologies, without requiring anything in return, Velthur explained. They're showing us what real maturity looks like. The Velkarn advance slowed, then stopped, then began to reverse mysterious, catastrophic failures in their swarm coordination. Unexpected die-offs. Sudden retreats from systems they should have easily taken. The council celebrated each victory, never quite acknowledging the impossibility of it all. The transmission came on all council frequencies simultaneously, impossible to block or ignore every ship, every station, every communication device in council space. Received it at the same moment. Velthur's crystalline form brightened with recognition when the image appeared. Ambassador Chen Li looked exactly as she had 405 years ago when she had walked out of the council chamber. The same sharp eyes, the same composed expression. The same cold smile. Greetings. Galactic Council. Chun's voice was calm, almost pleasant. I am Ambassador Chen Li, representing the Terran Accord. You may remember me from our last conversation, though I understand it's been some time. The council chamber erupted in chaos species shouting over each other, demanding explanations, expressing shock. Velther called for silence and got it. We have been watching, Chan continued. We have been fighting. For 85 years, we have been engaging the Vulcan in regions beyond your sensors. For the past 5 years, we have been operating within council space, protecting your worlds, saving your populations. She paused. Letting that sink in? You're welcome. By the way, Velther felt something that might have been shame if crystalline beings experienced such emotions. We could reveal ourselves sooner, Chum said, but we wanted to wait. We wanted you to feel what it was like to face extinction. We wanted you to understand desperation. We wanted you to appreciate help when it finally arrived. Is this revenge? Someone whispered in the council chamber. Chun's expression didn't change, but her eyes grew harder. No, she said. This is education. Revenge would have been watching you die. Education is making you live with the knowledge that the two violent, two dangerous species you rejected is the only reason you still exist. She leaned forward slightly. The Terran Accord offers the following terms. 1. Immediate cessation of all claims of council authority over human space or human activities. 2. Formal recognition of the Accord as a sovereign entity with no obligations to council governance. 3. A public apology for the exclusion and confinement of humanity. 4. Unrestricted access to all council territory and resources for Accord ships and personnel. 5. Complete technological and military cooperation in the elimination of the Vulcan threat. Those are demands, not offers. A council member protested. Correct. Chun smiled that cold smile. You have 1 week to decide. If you accept, we will save your civilization. If you decline, we will withdraw our forces and let you handle the Vulcan yourselves. Choose wisely. The transmission ended, leaving the council in stunned silence. Can they actually defeat the Vulcan? Someone finally asked Admiral Kresh, the council's military commander. Pulled up the tactical data they had been secretly compiling, based on the engagement patterns we've observed over the past 5 years. Kresh said slowly, human forces have a 97% success rate against Vulcan swarms. They possess adaptive shielding we can't replicate, weapons we can't detect, tactics we don't understand. And they've been fighting this enemy longer than we have. So yes, Velther said flatly, they can defeat the Vulcan? The question is whether we can afford to refuse their help. The debate that followed was bitter pride warred with survival. Arrogance battled necessity. If we accept these terms, we're admitting we were wrong. We were wrong. Velther cut through the protests. 250 years ago, we judged a species based on fear and prejudice. We confined them instead of helping them. We excluded them instead of mentoring them. And they responded by becoming something greater than we ever imagined. They could have asked to join us again. Why would they? Another member asked quietly. What do we have that they need? They've surpassed us technologically. They've developed weapons and drives we can't match. They've created a civilization without our help or approval. They don't want to join the council. They want us to acknowledge that we wronged them. An apology is too much. Velther's form pulsed with something like anger. An apology is the least we owe them, the ancient arbiter said. They are fighting to save us despite having every reason to let us perish. They are offering to share their technology despite our historical rejection. They are extending cooperation to the very council that called them unworthy. An apology is literally the minimum we can offer in return. The vote was held 3 days later. The council accepted. humanity's terms by a margin of 714 to 133. Chen Li received the council's acceptance with the same composed expression she had maintained throughout. "Very well," she said. "Terran Accord forces will begin coordinated operations with Council military within 48 hours. We will share our Velcon countermeasures. We will provide technical specifications for adaptive shielding. We will work together to eliminate this threat." She paused. "But understand this. We do this as equals, not as supplicants. We help because we choose to, not because you commanded. The galaxy that rejected us no longer has authority over us. We are the Terran Accord, and we bow to no one." The joint operations began immediately, and the galaxy watched in awe as human military doctrine revolutionized. The fight against the Velcon Terran ships appeared where they were needed most: sleek vessels that moved like predators, struck with precision, and vanished before retaliation was possible. They coordinated with Council forces, but maintained operational independence. They fight like they were born to it. Admiral Kresh observed after a joint operation that saved an entire sector. "They were," Velther replied quietly. "We called them too violent, too aggressive. We were right about their nature. We were just wrong about what that nature would make them capable of." The tide of the war shifted dramatically with human technology and tactics. The Velkarn became defeatable. Not easy prey, never that, but no longer an unstoppable force swarms that would have consumed entire systems. Were stopped cold by coordinated human council operations. Velkarn biology was countered by human biological warfare. Velkarn adaptation was rendered useless by weapons that changed faster than they could analyze 3 years after humanity's dramatic return. The last major Velcon swarm was destroyed in a battle that involved forces from 200 species, including 80 Terran Accord warships in the aftermath. The Council held a ceremony of formal recognition of the Terran Accord and a public apology for humanity's historical exclusion. Velther stood before the assembled galaxy and spoke words that had been centuries in the making. "Council erred," the ancient arbiter said simply. "We judged humanity based on fear. We excluded them based on prejudice. We confined them based on arrogance. We believed our way was the only way. We believed our peace made us wise. We believed our age gave us authority." The crystalline being's form pulsed with sincere remorse. "We were wrong about everything that mattered. Humanity did not need our guidance. They did not require our approval. They did not depend on our technology. They found their own path. They built their own civilization. They created wonders we never imagined. And when we faced extinction, they saved us despite our historical rejection." Velther turned to where Chen Li stood, still looking exactly as she had 4 centuries ago. "Ambassador Chen, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I offer humanity a sincere and unreserved apology. We wronged you. We limited you. We judged you unfairly. And you responded by becoming better than we ever were. We cannot undo the past, but we can acknowledge it and learn from it." Chen accepted the apology with a nod, no smile, cold or otherwise. Just simple acknowledgement. "The Terran Accord accepts the Council's apology," she said formally. "We acknowledge that mistakes were made on both sides. Perhaps if we had been more patient, more diplomatic, we could have changed the Council's mind. But what's done is done. We are not the species you rejected 4 centuries ago. We have grown, changed, evolved. Perhaps you have as well." She looked down at the assembled representatives. "The galaxy is changing," she continued. "The Velkarn showed us that ancient peace can breed weakness, that stagnation can masquerade as stability, that the old ways are not always the best ways. The Terran Accord offers a new model: innovation over tradition, merit over seniority, cooperation over hierarchy. We welcome any species who wish to join us, Chan said. Not as subjects, not as subordinates, but as equals. We will share our technology freely. We will collaborate on research. We will explore the unknown together. But we will never again submit to judgment by those who claim wisdom through age alone. The words hung in the air, not quite a challenge. Not quite an invitation, but something in between. Over the following decades, the galaxy-transformed species began leaving the Council to join the Terran Accord's more dynamic model. Young civilizations flocked to human space. Attracted by innovation and opportunity, the Council didn't dissolve. But it became increasingly irrelevant, a relic of a bygone era, maintained more for historical purposes than practical governance. Of Ulthar lived long enough to see the transformation complete 50 years after humanity's return. The galaxy was split between the old Council way and the new Accord model. Do you regret it? A young human diplomat asked Velthar during one of the Arbiter's final public appearances. Excluding humanity, I mean, Velthar's ancient crystalline form pulsed slowly, dimmer now with age. I regret the lost time, the Arbiter said honestly. I regret the billions who,